Storytelling is Greta's real superpower. Once upon a time, a 15-year-old girl called Greta sat on a cold concrete floor outside of Swedish Parliament to demand action on climate change. She has inspired millions of people, young and old, to take to the streets. Greta says that Asperger's syndrome is her superpower, but the real power of Greta Thunberg is her story, and the world waits with bated breath to see how this story will end. Storytelling is a superpower we all have. We are the only mammals who can invent fictional stories. It is this ability that empowers millions of people to cooperate with one another, and kill each other, but that's another story. In Christopher Booker's book, The 7 Basic Plots Why We Tell Stories, he details how all stories are fundamentally the same based on 7 basic plots: overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, and rebirth. The story of Greta Thunberg fits at least 4 of these plots already, and as for the ending, that's yet to be written. First, overcoming the monster. There is an evil force threatening our hero, their world, and/or mankind. The hero must fight and slay this monster, and if they succeed, they shall be handsomely rewarded. Think of Beowulf, Dracula, King Kong, War of the Worlds. Let's say, for the sake of argument, Greta is the hero. So who is the monster? Is it Donald Trump or Bolsonaro? Is it all of our leaders in general, or the elite? Or is it the system of capitalism itself? Make no mistake about it, when Greta calls for an end to business as usual and lambasts our world leaders for this fairy tale of perpetual economic growth, she's calling for an end to capitalism as we know it. However you choose to see the monster, when Greta is speaking truth to power, she's speaking for many of us. For those who are sick of being lied to by our leaders and can't trust a word that comes out of a politician's mouth. For those of us who are fearful of climate change and face an uncertain future. Will Greta slay the monster? We shall see. Rags to riches. At the beginning, our hero is insignificant and dismissed, but something happens to elevate them, revealing them to be exceptional. Think Great Expectations, Aladdin, Superman, Jane Eyre. The image of Greta sitting alone on that cold, hard pavement in Sweden just a year ago, and now in front of millions, alongside world leaders, is surely one of the great rags to riches stories of our times. The quest. In the quest, our hero must set out on a long and treacherous journey, overcoming obstacles and temptations until they are triumphant. Think The Lord of the Rings, Apocalypse Now, Harry Potter, or The Wizard of Oz. The primary reason Greta sailed to New York was to avoid calls of hypocrisy, which she received anyway. But there was another motive, and that was symbolism. Greta's long voyage across the Atlantic is an important chapter in her quest to save the planet. Voyage and return. There are similarities between this plot and the quest, but there is a fundamental difference. The hero travels out of their normal world and into the unknown before returning back to the safety of their home with experience and wisdom. Think Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Ramayana, Alice in Wonderland, or Finding Nemo. Greta has repeatedly said, "I shouldn't be here, I should be back at school." Will she ever return to her normal world? She's now one of the most famous people on the planet. Tragedy. There is no happy ending here. The tragedy tends to end in either great loss or death. Think Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Julius Caesar, or Breaking Bad. Whilst there are many benefits of Greta being the forefront of the environmentalist activist movement right now, there are also some drawbacks. It could backfire. Already many media outlets are trying to find ways to discredit her, and you can see that she's trying, when on stage with lots of other youth activists, to not be the sole focal point, but it's kind of too late. Being the sole figurehead makes you vulnerable and makes the movement itself vulnerable. That's why Occupy refused to appoint a leader. I seriously hope she's being well advised and protected. This story has captured the world's attention, not just because it fits the above archetypes, but because it affects us all. Many of us feel anxious about climate change, and many of us are angry at our world leaders for all kinds of reasons. In this sense, Greta speaks for us all. However, her actions and words are confronting. The difference is, Greta reads the science literally. There is nothing Greta is saying that isn't backed up by scientific consensus. People with Asperger's syndrome say that the world can feel overwhelming and this can cause incredible anxiety. This was apparent on stage at the UN when she was asked, "What is your message to world leaders today?" She said, "My message is that we'll be watching you." The crowd erupts into whoops and laughter and applause, and her facial expression is telling. She is grimacing. She can't understand why we are laughing. And that's when she starts to get really upset. Most of us would prefer to get on with our day, and that's understandable. The future's scary. But she can't do that. It weighs too heavily on her. And this is why she calls her Asperger's syndrome her superpower, because it gives her the urgency to act and to demand action, not just from our leaders, but from us all. When Greta is asked what we should all do, she says again and again, she hopes we will inform ourselves. Please read the IPCC report. Thousands of scientists around the world contribute to the work of the IPCC, assessing thousands of scientific papers annually and providing a clear assessment of where we are in terms of the climate crisis. We should read it, and we should, like Greta, read it literally. Thank you so much for watching Adam at 21st Century Workshop. To subscribe, please click here, and to watch another video, please click here. Learn for life, my friends.